Kia ora. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a really good example of a response to the literacy writing car, and then an example which would be unsuccessful in this assessment. I'm going to be talking about what makes A really, really good and the problems that we can see in B. I'll just give you a moment then to pause the video and read these two exemplars. So what I should say before moving on is that these are not real student responses. I wrote these myself. However, option B, this is really similar to the kind of response that I was seeing a lot when I was marking these assessments as an examiner in the June 2023 pilots. So a lot of the issues that I've put into this one were quite common among students that were taking this assessment. Option A, which we'll start with, this is a very good response, okay, and this is going to pass incredibly easily, and it shows you all the things that you should be aiming to do. And the first thing to talk about is how well this student is answering the question. They were asked to write a respectful response to one of the young people. The writing is going to be published on an online forum. So they are offering advice to this young person who's written in to help them with the problem. Straight away, I can see that this student is fulfilling that brief. They've started by addressing the young person who they're responding to. And then they've got this lovely kind of introductory paragraph where they show that they're respectfully acknowledging their problem. And they're using the kind of language that we would expect to see in this kind of medium. So we've got like, it's really tough, I've struggled with this too, I'm sorry to hear. So straight away I can see that this student has taken some time to break the question down, have a good think about it, and is making sure that they're following what they've been asked to do. We've then got this excellent paragraph here, which is really nicely detailed, and this is where the student is giving 3 pieces of advice to Tia. They've structured this really nicely, so they've got like firstly, and then they've got lovely connective, I would also suggest, and then they say finally before they give their final piece of advice. It's a simple way to structure something, but it's clearly done, and as the reader, I feel like this student is kind of leading me through their response. It's organized, and when I'm reading it, I'm not confused. I'm not having to work too hard to work out what's going on here. So this is really doing well for structure. They've got this lovely little kind of sentence here signing off. Hopefully this advice helps you. And then they've signed off with their name at the bottom. Another thing that I like about this paragraph is that they're supporting some of their points with some details. Obviously the word count for this was 150 words, and this is bang on 150 words. But I like that they've put in here a bit of kind of evidence, a bit of development to support this final point. So they're talking about how the body produces melatonin when it's time to sleep, and looking at screens can stop this from happening. So it's nice to see that the student's developing their ideas here. The final thing that's really good about A is that it's accurate. Okay, they straight away impress me. They start with a capital letter. They've capitalized Tia's name. We've got full stops at the end of the sentences. Got some correctly used commas. The spelling's good as well. And just generally, it looks to me like the student has taken care over their writing, making sure that they're accurate and that they've proofread their work as well to check for any errors or even typos that might have crept in as they're typing out their response. All right, let's take a look at option B. So straight away as the examiner, I can see that this is far too short. The word count that they were asked to meet was 150. This one is 150. This one is far below that. And that just means that the student won't have been able to show that they're developing their ideas well enough to get the marks for that kind of part of the assessment. The second thing I notice as soon as I start reading, Tia should avoid caffeine, is that this student is not fulfilling the brief. They haven't written a response to the young person, to Tia. They're just saying Tia should, just giving some general kind of advice for what Tia should be doing, but it isn't directly addressed to Tia. Therefore, they're not meeting the purpose. The purpose was to write a response to Tia, to a young person, and they haven't done that here. So that's a major problem with this one. This just highlights the importance of really taking some time to stop and really think about what the question is asking of you. Another thing I'm seeing straight away is that this is just written in one big chunk. It's one paragraph. As I said, tiers not addressed at the beginning. They're not signing off at the end. So in terms of structure, they're just not showing me that they've thought about how to structure this. It doesn't look like they've consciously put effort into structuring it. Within the paragraph as well, I can't see evidence of them trying to organise their ideas or signpost the reader through. So we've just got Tia should, she should, and that's it really. So it's not doing particularly well for structure either. The next thing the examiner is going to look at is language choices, and it's not too bad, the language in here. They've actually got some really good vocabulary. However, there's one thing that is problematic, and it's this here, the U, the letter U instead of the YOU. And this was really common when I was marking students' work for the 2023 pilot, and it's just something that you need to just make sure that you avoid doing. So when you're proofreading your work, just really carefully check that you are using formal language. This kind of thing's fine if you're messaging your friends, but when you're in an NCEA exam, you need to make sure that you use complete words and that you write formally. And the final problem with B, which again was really, really common in the 2023 pilot exam, is that there's some major problems with accuracy. Now, let's start with the positives. This student has started really well. They've got a capital letter for Tia. They've capitalized Coca-Cola as a brand name, so it needs capitals, and they've got a full stop. So this is a complete sentence. Examiners are marking this positively, so this is going to get a big tick, because here the student has shown that they understand punctuation and that they are consciously trying to use it. However, after this sentence, perhaps this student was rushing and they hadn't managed their time properly, but it all just starts to fall apart. We've got a typo here, which they should have picked up when they were proofreading. And then we've got missing full stops. So let me just read this out loud to you. And if you're in the assessment, I urge you to read it kind of in your head. You can't talk, obviously, in exam conditions. And you should be able to notice this kind of thing. So she should get lots of exercise during the day. She should also avoid screens near bedtime, because that might stop her body from producing melatonin, which you need to produce to be able to sleep. So I'm struggling to read that because I'm running out of breath. The full stop was needed here after day, okay? And then obviously there's a missing full stop at the end. This is just glaringly obvious. So just making sure that you look really carefully and check that you're using full stops. This error is called a run-on sentence, and the NCEA have released documents after students have taken the exams, and they've said that this is a major problem that students in New Zealand are having when they're doing this assessment. So just make sure that this isn't you. Make sure that you check your work, that it makes sense, and that you're using full stops to separate the complete thoughts. So there we go. I really hope that that is useful. This one shows you the things that you should avoid and remember, and this one gives you something to aspire to. It's clearly written. It answers the question. It is appropriate for the purpose and the audience, the reader. Uses excellent vocabulary, and it's very accurate. So thank you for listening to my video, and I wish you all of the best.